What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Also, once a month, I host online conversations for fathers that are co-sponsored by Dove Men Care and Dad Central Canada's National Fatherhood Organization. So I always like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Sunday afternoon, September 20th, here in Toronto. Beautiful day outside, no humidity, a little cool, but fall is coming, but beautiful, beautiful day. If you know anything about the Dr. Vibe show, most Sunday afternoons, I host a conversation called Black Canada Talking. And what Black Canada Talking is all about is it's an online event that provides Black Canadians an opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are of importance to them. And today we have another new friend to Black Canadians and people all around the world. So let me introduce you to him. His name is Roger Caesar. He's a 4-time speech champion, a 3-time international award-winning speaker, and a 3-time semifinalist at the World Championships of Public Speaking. He has spoken at TEDx, MoMondays, Speaker Slam, Fearless Voices, Flip the Script, and Brampton Mastermind. His dynamic and charismatic style has landed him in many places, including Jamaica, California, Boston, and New York City, and some other places that we're going to hear during this conversation. He is a proud owner of Caesar Transport Incorporated, a family Black-owned business who has just recently celebrated their 36-year anniversary. In 2018, he was a recipient of the City of Brampton Volunteer Award for helping startup entrepreneurs. He has dedicated his time to his community and the youth leadership programs. He continues to contribute to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, Knight's Table Food Bank in Brampton, and recently working with TD Canada, teaching speaking presentations to youth. Roger's a motivational speaker who helps out others to develop their speaking skills and maximize their greatness. So we'd like to welcome, for the first time but not the last time, Roger Caesar. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you, my friend?
I am blessed.
We're trying to get together for a long time now.
Okay, so pop quiz to you. Where did we first meet?
It was at that function with, it was at Sheridan College.
Yes.
Sheridan College.
Yes. Sheridan College had an event, and Ryan O'Neill Knight.
That's right. Ryan Knight was hosting it.
Yeah.
And that was the very first time, and I believe it was Nikki Clark that introduced us.
Absolutely. And much shout out to Nikki Clark for bringing us together.
Yes.
Ryan O'Neill Knight runs a great organization called the Afro-Caribbean Business Network Canada Foundation. And he had an event at Sheridan College, which is in the western part of the Greater Toronto area, called the Legacy Symposium. And Nikki said, you two got to meet each other. And we met each other, but now we haven't been in touch since. We're just back and forth and trying to get each other together to do something like this. And finally, the opportunities hit. So, Roger, I'd like to say thank you for taking time out of your positive, productive schedule to share with us today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Pleasure is mine. We read some great accolades about yourself, but where is Roger from? What's he all about? What was he all about before he was a business owner and worldwide speaking champion? Where'd you grow up, etc.?
Wow, it's a large and a loaded question. Listen, I was born in Grenada, a small little island. They call it the Isle of Spice. And when I came to Canada, was a very shy kid, very, very shy. Really was the type of person that would shy away from public scenes. Didn't think too much about myself. And I dove into track and field, and that was my love. I loved track. I ran that for the longest time until university. And that's where I started to gain my confidence and my ability to feel comfortable within my own self. And from there, it was more about trying to learn who I was outside of the sport. And I really, really loved accounting. And I think that was the main thing that I wanted to be when I grew up. I remember distinctly my father's accountant was a person, when I looked at him, I thought he was just like a god, the way he represented himself and the things that he was doing. And I always said to myself, I wanted to be just like him. So that was where it all started from for me. And when I moved on throughout my life, obviously, we all have our moments where we become rebellious and trying to find who we are. And it was a conversation with my mom one day on the porch when I realized that I wanted to get back into working with the family business. And that was a conversation that meant a lot to me because of the fact that before that, even though I knew the business was always there, I often didn't get along with my father at the time. And that was not for any reason other than he was building the business and I was too ignorant to understand that and see that his time was being spent wisely trying to orchestrate this business that we now still have and operate. And once I decided to make that transition and come over to the business, it was very difficult because my father was the type of person that wasn't going to just give you anything just like that. He wasn't going to put you in one of the corporate seats or anything of that nature. He made you work from the bottom up. And I think that was very important for me to have that experience, to learn to sit inside one of our trucks and be with one of the drivers on a day-to-day basis, learning the business from the inside out. And then once I got through that process and learned about the business, it was that time when my father finally decided to pass me the keys, as they say, to the organization, and I took over. And from there, it was magical and yet at the same time difficult. Being very young at the time when I first started, there was a lot of moments where those who knew me as my father's son, it was a difficult transition. And there was a lot of skepticisms along the way. And I remember one incident when I went to one of the customers that we've been working with for quite some time, and they had changed over management. And when I walked into the gentleman's office, I stood there, and I obviously introduced myself as the owner of Caesar Transport and welcomed him to the company and told him that if there's anything that I can do or help with, he has no problems in asking me. And he just stood there with a blank face. And that's the stare that was so cold. And then it felt like, maybe about 5 minutes, but it was only like probably about 5 seconds, 10 seconds. And then he finally said, "Thank you." And that feeling that I had in that moment, my friend, it was one of those where you don't really understand how to communicate with everybody. And that's when I decided to figure out how to start communicating with people on every level and never to feel intimidated at any time, any place, or anywhere for that matter. And that's when I had joined the organization of Toastmasters to further build my skills in speaking. And to be honest with you, I never realized the potential that I had in that because, again, going back to my childhood and being so shy, to coming to a place where they were teaching me and helping me to grow in speaking and leadership. It was a bit of a transition, but I remember the first time I spoke, I had a gentleman by the name of Sanjay Sharma come up to me and he said, "You're going to be a champion one day if you keep this up." And as like anybody else, you often would say, I don't think so. And I recall literally sitting there and watching him every single time I spoke, look at me and give me that same look. And the rest is history. I started competing more and more, and with my business, feeling more confident and comfortable around executives. And the winnings helped, you could say.
Well, I'm going to jump in there. Thank you you've covered a lot of ground in the last few months. So I want to cycle back a little bit and pick some areas out that
Sure.
you've shared with us. What have your parents instilled in you?
Oh, they are very, very important to me. Both of them, they have taught me the humility, to be humble. at all times, and to understand the true value of who you are as a human being, and to never let anyone take that away from you. They've also taught me the value of responsibility and to be independent. And I think that was one of the things that I saw most in my father. My father was a person who was really, really strong-willed and works really hard at everything. And that's another quality that I learned as well, is to work hard for everything that I wanted to achieve. My mom was one of those individuals that was more of a cheerleader, but man, did she ever work behind the scenes, and always teaching us that education was important, to understand the value of being a Black person in Canada, and for that matter, around the world, and to always value who you are. Those are the key things that they taught us.
Excellent. I did not know until you sent me your bio that you have been in a business, a family-owned business, for 36 years. Do you know, not only as a Black person and a Black family, how rare air that is?
Yes, yes. And I know that from experience, because I've seen some of my own relatives and friends who have tried to start businesses. And in fact, when my dad started this business, he started it with his brothers originally, and then he broke off and started to do his own thing. And I remember a lot of times we would see friends of his who had started businesses around the same time as him, and for whatever reason, they faltered or could not continue to keep the business afloat, and have failed or have faltered away from it. So it has happened, and I've seen it.
2020 has been a very interesting year, to say it mildly. And especially the effects on Black Canadians and Black Canadian business owners. What has kept the family business going strong, in your opinion, for 36 years? Because I believe that some of the things that you share with us will be helpful for those who are thinking about or in an entrepreneur situation right now who are Black Canadians.
Relationships are important. I would start with that. When my dad started his business, it was a handshake and a smile, right? And we've come a long way. Marketing is very important as well. When I went to school, I wanted to be an accountant. I changed my.
I just want to interrupt you for a second. You and I have another thing in common, because that's what my dad wanted me to be.
Oh, did he really?
Yes. And after my first semester in university, I left the program because I couldn't see myself with the personality that I had sitting behind a desk.
So that is you and me.
Exactly.
There's where we connect, because that is exactly the thing that happened with me. I was working as a co-op student for an accounting firm in high school, and I loved it. It was fun. And then it hit me. When I would have the summer job there, it actually hit me sitting at the desk one day. I said, this is not me. I'm not this type of person that sits behind a desk for 8 hours crunching numbers all day long. And that's when I changed everything in my second year.
Right.
I changed and I started marketing. And it was the best decision for me, because you're constantly trying to innovate and become better at something when it comes to your business. And the ideas continue to flow. And that was one of the key moments, even with my dad, because my dad was an old school person. And I started to give him these new ideas and nuances. He had a lot of skepticism with regards to it. And he didn't think it would work. And then when he started to see it, and then the amount of attention that it started to get, that's when he kind of turned around and realized it was very important.
After that first semester, I said, Dad, I'm not doing it anymore. And I took full responsibility for paying for my university. I graduated with no debt.
Good for you. Good for you.
So it was good.
That doesn't happen to many people.
Not these days. These days. But it's certainly a different time now than it was then. My apology for interrupting, but I wanted to express that connectivity.
Yes.
That you and I have. Getting back to some of your thoughts on, giving some thoughts and best practices for Black Canadian entrepreneurs, either that are in the heat of the battle, wanting to get in the heat of the battle? So sorry to interrupt you like that.
No, that's not a problem. Again, relationships are important. It's very difficult now, especially in my business, the transportation business. There's been so many differences that have occurred from when my father started till now, and we've seen a lot of situations where a lot of accidents and malpractices have caused the industry to have a lot of problems, and the insurance levels have gone up and everything like that. But when it comes to actual businesses, relationships are important. I feel that what I was able to establish with many of the customers that we have is longevity and the trust that they have with us. We have had customers that have been with us for almost 30 years, some of them 25 years, 20 years. These customers have relied on us because, number one, I've always made myself available. I'm not the type of owner that hides behind the scenes. I've always made myself available to them so that if there were any issues or problems, they can always rely on me. So I've always had my face out there. I keep very important as well that when situations happen and arise in business, that you always are on top of them. I think that's also a very important part of it as well. We try very hard to minimize any type of turnovers with our business. Most of my employees have been with us for quite some time, so also relationships with your employees. Now, when it comes to startup, it's a very difficult situation nowadays. You have to have the right people around you. Very important that you have the right people that are in your corner, that are there to help you, whether it's financial advisors, whether it's people in the banks, whether it's your family or friends. Most times they say that working with friends and family doesn't always mix, but if you have the right people with you, with the knowledge that is necessary to achieve the goals that you want in terms of your business, that is important. Also, understand to always keep things, make sure that you always have that mindset that you keep something for rainy days. Far too often we feel that as soon as we gain a bit of money in our businesses, that we go out there and we buy all expensive things. And I think that's one of the things that I learned from my father, that he was very humble, and when he knew he could afford something, he went out and got it, but not before he made sure that we were settled and we were okay as a business and as a family. And then that's what I also try to do as well, is to be very conscientious of that situation. Because a lot of businesses, they end up failing within the first 2 years or 3 years of their existence. And the reason why is because of poor management and poor financial skills, and knowing how to operate in the right format in the business that you're doing. So have the right people around you.
Nice. How many Black people in Canada are in this industry?
Wow. There is, to give a number at this point in time, I wouldn't know exactly, but I know that the minorities have taken over, and I'll say it that way. There's a huge influx of minority owners coming into the transport and trucking business today. This business it was about 66 points, I believe the last number was 66.8% were white, predominantly white owners of the businesses. Today, you are seeing an influx of more minority owners coming in and being a part of the transportation and trucking business.
Because people don't realize that trucking is never going to go away.
No, it's not. And I'll say this, when we were talking off air about, the pandemic and COVID, this was one of the blessings, is being in this business, because we were an essential. Yes. And my employees, though they were nervous when it first started, they were very happy to know that they had lots of work to do, because we were on the roads every day, late at times, because there were so many customers of ours that needed products out there. So this business will not die. It will always be there. The problem is that we are getting an influx as well of inexperienced individuals who are coming in and trying to get their trucking companies out and running, and they're slashing costs a lot of times, which is not helping a lot of us in this business. And what I mean by that is simply they cut the cost of their deliveries, and then they end up having problems with their overheads or their mechanical issues that happen with their trucks, and they can't afford it. So they're taking away business from us initially, and then after finding out that they're ruining the rest of us by the situations happening to their own companies and businesses.
Wow. Well, let's transition into the world of public speaking. When did you realize that you had to go to a Toastmasters meeting?
Like I said in the beginning, it was literally when I first took over my father's company and I met that gentleman in the office.
Okay.
That alone made me realize that I had an issue, I had a problem. I was not able to articulate myself properly in front of everyone. And this person was an introvert, to say the least. So it was a lot harder for me. I had been used to having people start a conversation, and then you kind of just flow with that conversation, similar to what we're doing right now. But when you deal with individuals who are not much of a talker, it was hard for me to bring that conversation out of them. And so that's why I looked up Toastmasters and joined. And that's where it all started for me.
Do you remember doing your first speech?
Yes. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do.
Would you like to share?
It's kind of like riding a bike. The first time you ride your bike and you get it,
yes,
you never forget. But that first moment, it was amazing. It was amazing. It was, again, in Toastmasters, your first speech is called an icebreaker, and it's basically to talk about yourself. And how many times when you're in an interview and the person says to you, well, tell us a little bit about yourself. It's the hardest question. A lot of times people don't realize that is a very difficult question to answer because you're not expecting it. But that's what that first speech was about, telling them about myself, telling them about my journey in life and how I got to where I was. And again, Sanjay Sharma, shout out to him. He was very instrumental in putting me on that path, on that direction that allowed me to see my potential in speaking.
Nice. When did you start realizing that this was not going to be a short-term journey at Toastmasters?
Wow. I guess it would be because I am a competitor in everything that I do.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what it is. I compete to the highest level. And when I watched others before me who were in the club, I'm that type of person that soaks it in like a sponge. I'm looking at each person, how they speak. What is it that makes them different to me? How does they attract an audience when they speak that in ways I don't? And I started to really study each of these individuals that I knew that were better than me. And when I started competing, I competed in my second year, I believe, in Toastmasters. Yes, it was in my second year. So I started in 2011, and by 2012, I was starting to compete. And I lost, and lost badly.
Okay.
I'm not going to even front with that. I watched the individuals who beat me, and I went back to the drawing board, looked at them again, studied their style. And it was just the competitive juices in me that made me want to continue to get better each time. And that was what it was for me personally. For me, it was constantly trying to get better at what I do, just like I do in business, just like I do in general as a person. I was wanting to get better. And the more I learned from them, the more I started to figure out how I wanted to be as a speaker, the better I got.
Nice. When did you experience your first victory competitively, and what was that feeling like? Take us back to that moment.
I'm going to take you back to a victory that I didn't win anything from, but it was a victory nonetheless.
Okay.
And for the longest time, and I equate it to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was spectacular at what he did in scoring, and and defense. And in every way, you thought he was amazing when he first came into the league. And then he met the Detroit Pistons, who constantly knocked him down, constantly beat him up. And that was, in a small way, what I was feeling when I started competing. I constantly was getting beaten. I constantly couldn't find a way to crack the top in terms of speaking. And then I finally did it in a contest that had nothing to do with just the actual speeches, but it was a table topics contest. And table topics is basically learning to speak off the cuff. So moments like this would be helpful when you learn how to do table topics in conversations like this, learning to be able to speak off the cuff. And that was great for me. And I finally made it to the district. And that was a victory for me. You've got to go through 4 levels before you get to the district level. And once I got there, that there to me was reaching that mountaintop that I had been trying, and it eluded me for the longest time to get to that point. And once I got there, I was very happy. Now, I ended up getting second, but for me, it was a victory. It was a victory because it showed that I can run with many of the fellow members that I had watched and looked up to for many years before that. So that was what it was for me. That was my moment, that victory, that first one. And in terms of an actual victory, that came in 2014. I competed in the humorous speech contest. I was really, really nervous because naturally I'm a funny guy. If you see me, if you know me, if you're around me, you know that I'm a funny guy, but it's completely different when you try to translate that into a speech and making people laugh constantly throughout an entire speech. And I'll tell you something, my friend. I went there with a speech talking about, of all things, if pets could talk, what would you say? And I remember sitting in the parking lot before the contest, and I looked at my speech and I was going through it in my head, and then I thought, there is no way you're going to win with a speech like this. You might get past the first round, but you're not winning at all with a speech like this. And then I remembered I went skydiving.
Okay. All right.
I had a skydiving experience, and I remember, you know what? That would be a cool speech to talk about. What happened on that? And I literally went in there and did the speech verbatim. Didn't practice, didn't do nothing, but just talked about the event, and people were dying laughing. And I remember I asked them to record it for me so I could go back and then polish it up and do it the proper way. And that took me all the way from the club level to the district level, and I won with that speech. And it was funny. It was hilarious.
Nice.
And that was my moment when I realized I made it.
Yeah, and you've done some incredible things, like part of your bio, international award-winning speaker, 3-time semifinalist, 3 times at the World Championships of Public Speaking. Are you still, you said you're competitive, so I want to make sure I'm on the right path here. Are you still going for the gold?
I do. I still want to. In Toastmasters, there's different levels that you have to go through. And I just recently achieved my DTM, which is a Distinguished Toastmasters, which is the highest level you can achieve in Toastmasters. And with that comes some parts of in there where you have to give up the competitive part and go into the leadership roles. And that was what I was doing for the last 2 years, was being a part of the district leadership part of Toastmasters. So I was hungry to get back, to say the least, with regards to my competitiveness. I had won the 2015, the 2016, and then I won in 2018 for the international speech contest. And those were the years that I went to the World Championships of Public Speaking as well. And I think that that alone gave me the opportunity to not only learn from the very best there, but it also gave me a sense that I can run with them. And I've always said that when I feel that I can play with the very best, that to me just gives me that drive that to go further and to try and achieve the ultimate goal, which is to become the world champion itself. And that's going to be, that's something that I want to do. And again, I've always heard, and there was a gentleman by the name of Darren LaCroix who said, if you're going there just to chase the trophy, go to a store and buy it. Go to a store and buy it, right? But if you're actually going there to motivate, inspire, and to move people, then compete. And that's the reason why I love competing.
Nice. Very, very, very nice. That's great to hear. How you, and I say this part, you're a veteran of the Toastmasters organization now. Over the years, have you seen more people getting involved? And what reason, if so, what reasons are people coming into the Toastmasters organization now? Are they any different than when you came into it for the first time?
We all know, and this is a proven fact, that public speaking is the first fear of everyone. Death comes second. You've heard this before. Public speaking is the greatest fear that most people have. And a lot of people come into Toastmasters with that fear of public speaking, so in large crowds. For me, it was different. I wasn't afraid of large crowds, especially with the fact that I ran track and field for all those years. I was used to seeing large crowds and performing in front of them. My thing was in moments when I was in a boardroom, small groups of people, and that used to make me nervous. And a moment like this right now, about 9 years ago, would have scared me to do. I would be sweating profusely and very nervous to have this conversation with you. But that's why I joined. A lot of people join Toastmasters because of their own fears in terms of speaking with large crowds. And you see more and more people coming in primarily for that, but secondly, because they at work have to do a lot of presentations. They are taking on major roles, and they themselves have to learn how to present in front of people. And that's why they come as well. And then you have those that come just for the social aspect of it. They want to get to know new people, do a lot of more networking for their own businesses, and get to establish themselves as creators. And when I say creators, I mean that they themselves have learned or are learning to be able to take the lessons that they're learning there and create more experiences for other people.
Wonderful. That's great. How has Toastmasters, let me rephrase that. What impact has Toastmasters made on your life professionally and personally?
Professionally, it's allowed me to feel comfortable speaking with any person that I meet in the executive world. I have gotten more business now because of the relationships I've been able to achieve by being able to feel comfortable and confident speaking with anybody that I come in contact with. I no longer have that fear element of waiting for someone to speak to me. I am the one that is approaching them. And I now know how to direct the conversation so that it is in a positive manner, and it allows me to have a great relationship and a business journey with these individuals. On a personal level, I think I would say that with my kids, they would say to you that he talks too much. He just knows how to talk now, so it's too much now. And whenever they get in trouble and I have to talk to them about something, they roll their eyes now and they'll say, "Oh gosh, we're going to get a 5 to 7 minute speech from him about what he did wrong." So I think on a personal level, it might have deterred people more than anything else. But and I say that in joking fashion, but in all seriousness, it has allowed me to feel comfortable, and I think that's the key word: comfortable and confident in speaking to anybody. Do I still get nervous? Yes, I do. I do.
No.
Oh yes, of course. We're human, but I've learned how to control it better. That's all it is. I've used it as a fuel, as of excitement, rather than fear.
Wow. I don't get nervous as much as I used to, but when I do, I always tell the audience that I'm nervous because I want to do my best for you. I don't want to sell you short.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
For
that
me on a stage, that is exactly how I feel. I am thinking about my audience, so I've transferred that energy that I used to have that scared me and was worried about what I look like on stage, and now I've used it as an exciting feature to say, man, I can't wait to go out there and to perform in front of this audience and to excite them and to make them inspired and motivated. That's what it is for me now.
nice. What are some of the biggest events you've had to present at?
Well, in Jamaica, I spoke. That was exciting. I'd never been to Jamaica before. That was an event all on its own. A company here, Access Communications, reached out to me, and they have an annual conference, and they do it in different places around the world. And I remember getting the call from the gentleman. He said to me, I have heard you speak on numerous occasions, different places. And then he stopped and he said, I'm not a stalker. I'm not a stalker.
Okay.
And I laughed and he said, I'm not a stalker, but because I enjoy listening to you and watching how you interact with audiences, I want you to be our keynote speaker for our conference. And I remember sitting in his office when he started telling me this. And I said, okay, that's fine. That's great. Give me some details. What are we doing? Where are we going? Where is it? And he said, oh, well, what I want you to do is probably an hour long. If you can do a 45 to an hour long keynote, and we will be doing it in Jamaica. I said, yeah, I'll be there. That's all I needed.
There you go.
That's all I needed. And I remember afterwards when I went there, the excitement, obviously, of going to a place I'd never been to, which, by the way, I will say this, Jamaica's very beautiful. We were in Montego Bay and staying at the Hilton. And it was fabulous. It was fabulous. Getting to the opportunities like that just from being a part of Toastmasters and speaking there and being a champion. The opportunities that I got were tremendous. And you go from there to California, where I went 3 times. I was speaking in California. The first time I went there was for a major event on the relief program that was happening when the fires were happening out there. And we've seen that happen a million times, but I got an opportunity to speak out there. And then from there, it was just more and more opportunities that came about. And I feel blessed. I honestly feel blessed to be in a position that I'm in and to be an influencer in many ways to others who are coming up and trying to learn what they want to become or how they feel they want to be as speakers as well.
Nice. Very,
But
very
Jamaica
nice.
was the big one. Jamaica was the big one. I've had a lot of really, really interesting places that I've been to, but Jamaica was obviously one of the standout moments for me.
Congratulations on that. Before we went live, we had a little bit of a pre-show or pre-event conversation, and talking about how 2020 has impacted you speaking wise and how it's impacted the speaking industry. So can you give us some insights, either from a personal or industry wide, how this year has affected public speaking?
Personally, I have always been a speaker that loves the audience. I am a personable individual. When I go to an event, I've often told people that your first impression starts the minute you get out of your car, because you never know who you're going to meet along the way, and whether it's in the parking lot, whether it's in the hallway, you don't know who's going to be there and who's going to be in that room with you. So I try to engage with everybody. And whether it's just saying that this person has a beautiful outfit, or a beautiful smile, or thank you for coming out today, or getting to know them on a more of a personal basis. That was who I was. And then, of course, when I got on stage, I usually interacted with the audience a lot and had fun doing that, or I'd come out off the stage and come into the crowd and talk to somebody, or something would happen in the middle of my speech, and I would use that as a part of my presentation. So all of these things were bonuses for me as a speaker. It allowed the audience to see the personal side of me, to see who I was and my character and the way I flowed, so to speak, on stage. When we talk about what has happened and what has transpired now with 2020, it has completely altered that specific feeling that I used to have. Now, no longer do you have that personable connection with people. Instead, you're looking at a screen of different faces who are muted and sometimes blanked out on screen. The idea of making a joke or trying to connect with an audience and hearing them laugh or hearing them agree or disagree, for that matter, with something that you say is now gone when you're online. You don't have that personable connection with the audience. And that was the challenge that I had to face in the way that I was as a speaker. And I remember the very first time when I spoke, I didn't even look at the camera lens. And as you can see now, I've gotten used to looking at the camera itself, but I was concentrating on the people on the screen. So I'd be looking down at everybody while I spoke, and I lost myself, because then it didn't look like I was being, as if I was speaking to them,
Right.
like I am now. And that was one of the transitions that I had to get used to. The other thing was not hearing anybody. It was so difficult. That was hard, to be able to speak and think, are they getting my message? Are they understanding it? So that took some time as well. Over time, though, I've taken it as a positive challenge for myself to learn how to be able to speak online, to be able to communicate in ways that would still attract an audience and deliver my message and still get them to feel everything that I'm saying. There are techniques that I've watched and I've learned from other speakers who have been speaking online. I've tried to, again, which goes back to when I first started in Toastmasters, look at those that have come before me, who I look up to, who have been doing this for a while, and try to learn more and more of the skills that are necessary when doing this. And I think that's very important. As well, I would say, looking at the international speech contest this year and seeing it online and how some of the speakers were able to adapt, that also was very important to me as well, to get an opportunity to look at them and see how they were able to transition. That helped as well.
Nice. Very, very nice. So are you going to be competing in this year's competition online?
We'll soon see.
Okay.
We will see. We will see.
Okay.
The
That
jury
is
is
good.
still out on that. We will see for sure.
All right. And you were sharing some tips. I guess compare. Okay, let me do it this way. What are some tips you can give face-to-face presentation compared to some tips you can give online? You gave some, but I do speak that one day we're going to get back into that world. It may look a little different, but there's some tips, and you don't have to give many, just a few tips for people, and maybe there's some that are common to both that will be helpful for that person who wants to get to that place where they're comfortable sharing in front of a group of people.
I've always said, and I've always learned for a long time, the importance of stories. Stories are the gateway to a speaker's soul, and it helps the audience to open up their hearts for a speaker. Your stories, your personal stories, and this can transition from the being in person and online. Stories are key. We often, and I've had this conversation before with a lot of people, we often are afraid to open ourselves up as speakers because our personal stories, if they're sad, if they're embarrassing, we don't want anybody to hear those. So we lock them up in the back of our head, we turn the key and we throw it away, and we hope that they never see the light of day, and those people out there never hear about it. Or better yet, and this is the key, you don't want to remember it yourself. So you try to lock it away. But the reality is that when you humanize yourself as a speaker and you allow yourself to open up and give stories that have happened to you, it allows your audience to not number one, they start to feel your authenticity. Number two, they realize that in your stories, they can find their own stories of their own personal journeys and traumas and troubles and tribulations that they've gone through, and happy times as well. Because the embarrassing ones, like me talking about the skydiving situation, had a lot of people coming up to me after and saying, "Oh my God, I've been wanting to do that, but I just was so afraid," or "Oh my God, I did that too," or "You know what? I've had some things that I've had in my bucket list that I've wanted to do. Thank you for allowing me to feel like I can go out and do it." And then you have those that say, "I needed to hear that story because I'm going through that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going through the same thing you went through, or I'm going through something similar." And I've always said that your stories are personal, but the message is universal,
Nice.
right? The stories are personal. We all have stories. We all have things that have happened in our lives. But when you as a speaker can translate that into a universal message that everyone can take away from, then you're doing your job. So it's very important to humanize yourself and not act like you are on top of your audience, or that you're preaching down to them. I'll never forget, somebody said that to me early in my journey as a Toastmaster when I first started speaking. They said, you attract an audience so well, but it feels like you're talking to us like a preacher."
Mm.
I had to step back for a second and I asked him what he meant. He said, "Well, it seems like you act like you know it all when you speak." And that's when it hit me. It hit me because I'm sitting there conveying messages and I wasn't putting any personal stories to it. I was just telling them what to do. And that had to change. And then I started taking personal stories out of my life. And even though they were embarrassing, even if they got me sad, even if they made me cringe at the thought of even letting anybody know about it, I realized that those same stories helped. But can I give an example of that?
Absolutely. Please do.
I spoke at an organization, Desjardins, one day. And I remember the speech was all about facing your fears and acknowledging when you are wrong and how to overcome that and to change it to a positive outcome. And when I finished the speech that day, a lot of people came up to me, and of course they were patting me on the back or saying, "Oh, that was a great speech. I really enjoyed it. That was great. It was fun. Loved it, loved it, loved it." And there was a gentleman in the back, and he waited for everybody to disperse. And then he came over to me, and you could see that he was visibly shaken. His eyes looked like they were swelling up. And he walked over to me and said, "It's funny. I wasn't going to come to your presentation today. I have a lot of things to do work-wise, and I had a lot on my mind. But there were so many people that kept on talking about you and saying that you have to come and watch this guy speak." And that alone is humbling to me, to have that type of recognition by other people. I really feel blessed by that. But when in saying that, he said, I came here specifically because of that. But now I'm leaving with a purpose. He said to me that today at 4 o'clock, I'm supposed to go down to my lawyer and we're supposed to do the proceedings for my divorce with my wife. I've always blamed her for everything that has happened in our relationship. And I was always afraid to look within my own self and see what I was doing wrong. And I kept on blaming her. And just from this conversation, this speech that you delivered today, you made me realize that I had to start taking responsibilities for my part in it, and realize that it's not that I don't love her. I love her so much. I just was afraid to admit that I was at fault too. And I'm going to go and I'm going to try to reconcile everything with her.
Wow. That's amazing.
Those are the moments that I live for as a speaker. To have individuals come up like that, it's great to have all the accolades from everybody else that comes in the room and is praising you, but it's those specific moments, that one or two individuals that come up to you after and have a lengthy conversation about something that's going on with them. That's the most important thing to me.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that story. That's what it's all about, changing lives for the better. And that's fantastic. Just want to shout out William and also shout out Sylvia from the East Coast. William. So, yes, wonderful Sylvia Paris people. Wonderful. Does wonderful work. Not even work, passion for the Black. And William saying has a question. Have you already made a book?
No, I have not yet. And listen, hold on. Let me say this before we get into that, William. Let me touch on that. I have had numerous people come up to me, numerous editors asking me to write a book. My view is this: I don't want to write a book just for the sake of writing a book. I want to write a book that is going to inspire and move people and move mountains. That's what I want to do. So a lot of people go out there and they just want to write a book so that they can have something that they could sell or they can have as a trophy piece. I don't want that. I want, when I'm ready to write that book, that it's going to be one of those books that you're going to keep in right on the front of your house, or in the front where everybody can read it or everybody can see it. That's what I want. I think it's very important that I really concentrate on what I'm doing right now, which is my self-development as a speaker, my self-development as a leader, my self-development as an owner. These are the things that I'm working on. I'm trying to get better and better every day. And that day is going to come, William, when I am going to write a book and it's going to be exactly the way I want it to be. And when it does, bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be right here again on Dr. Vibe's show.
Wonderful. Where would you be if Toastmasters was not part of your journey?
Wow, that is a very good question. I would say that personally, I don't think I would have gotten to the levels that I have gotten to without it. When I sat on those steps that day with my mom, I was taking a huge chance working with my dad and trying to reestablish that relationship. And today I love him dearly for everything that he has been able to teach me. But I wonder if I would have been the business owner or the success that I am if I did not learn how to communicate. And ladies and gentlemen, communication is key. You need to know how to communicate well with anybody that you come in contact with. And I think that that's what is the main thing that I got from going to Toastmasters, that I was able to learn how to effectively communicate and also become an effective leader in my own right. If I didn't have that, I don't know if I would have been a success in my business, or for that matter, a success in terms of how to relate to people and relationships that I currently have now. I've met a lot of people, great people along the way, just from speaking. The world has opened up to me in ways I never expected. And I've met a lot of great individuals along the way, and I'm really proud to say that I have. And I've been able to help others. And I think that too is key as well. Seeing others come up, I have a lot of good friends, Hassan Wadi and Kwesi Millington and Gabrielle Mamone, and I'm pretty sure you know him too, but Jeff Martin as well.
Yes.
Individuals that I have had the tremendous pleasure of connecting with in some way, shape, or form, and love the work that they're doing out there in the community. And it wouldn't have happened if I didn't go down that path. So we are all directed in certain paths. It's up to you to decide whether or not you want to jump on it or you want to stand there and watch it pass you by.
Wonderful. Well, as we start winding down the conversation, I'd like to say, first of all, thank you for taking time of your positive, productive schedule to share with us. I really appreciate what you do, what you have done, what you are doing, and what you will be doing going forward. Are there some things we should be looking from you in the horizon in the near future?
Well, I will be speaking at various locations around the city and around the world. And look out for that. I always put everything that I'm doing on LinkedIn. I also put it on my Instagram as well, where I will be. So look out for that. I'm going to be heading to Louisiana next month to speak. So once I get the link, I will put it up on my Instagram and in my LinkedIn as well. And hopefully you will be able to come out and hear it online, of course.
Of course. And at the contact, we have two pieces of contact information for Roger scrolling along the bottom here, but I'll read out for those people who are only listening. It's rogercaesar.com. And then you can also find him on Instagram. It's caesar.empire. That's his handle on Instagram. Do you have any final words you'd like to share?
Let's get the spelling right as well, because a lot of times that's the
okay, so
Caesar, Caesar.
There you go. Excellent. Any final words you'd like to leave for our audience before we let you move on to the next part of your journey?
Yes. I want to say thank you to all the individuals who wake up every morning and drive themselves to be great. I want to thank you for allowing yourself to be better today than you were yesterday. Thank you for all the individuals out there who are parents, who get up every morning and inspire their children to become great. Thank you to all the men and women out there who take the time to work in the industry to help others and to save lives. Thank you for always looking at yourself and wanting to improve each and every day. And most importantly, what I'd like to say is simply this. Thank you for being you. Always keep rising to find your greatness.
Wonderful. Beautiful close to the conversation. I am Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Every month, too, I host online conversations for fathers that are co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization, and Dove Men Care. If you want to find out more information about me, best place to do is go to my website, thedrvibeshow.com. All the information you want to know about me online is there. Replays of my epic conversations, what's upcoming in the Dr. Vibe journey is all there. Most of it's all there, because there's some things we don't want to share yet. That word yet. As always, thank you very much, Sylvia. Thank you. And saying thanks, Dr. Vibe, bringing the best to us. Well, you're some of the best, and we have to get you here. And it was on my mind when you showed up today online. I'm going to be reaching out to have you here because you're part of the best that the world needs to know about, and you offer your best at all times. I always close out with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Again, thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, William. Thanks for everyone who watch or listen to this live, or who will watch or listen to it on the replay. And also thank you to BIA Media for another epic production. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith and walk good. Next week, we have our month-end conversation with Elle Jones, Cesar, and Warren. They'll be recapping some of the things that have been going on in the world and in Canada from a Black Canadian perspective. Please check it, 5 o'clock Eastern Time, September 27th. God bless, peace be well, keep the faith, and walk good.